Did you know that one simple walking habit, something millions of Americans over 60 do every single morning, can quietly triple your risk of having a stroke? Most seniors have never heard this. Most doctors never mention it. And yet, every year, thousands of older adults across the United States suffer life-changing strokes that could have been prevented if they had understood what was really happening inside their bodies when they stepped out the front door. Welcome to Senior Brain Health, where we bring you the truth that aging Americans deserve, not fear-based rumors, not guesses, but real insights from decades of medical experience. Today's topic may be the most urgent one we've covered, because walking is supposed to be the safest, healthiest routine in your day. But for many older adults, certain walking habits trigger dangerous blood pressure spikes, reduce oxygen flow to the brain, and create the perfect conditions for hidden blood clots to form. And the most frightening part? These risks often appear before you feel anything is wrong. Stay with me because what you're about to learn could protect your brain every single morning. Before we dive in, if you haven't subscribed yet, I recommend you hit that button and turn on the bell so you never miss another health tip made just for you. If you enjoy this video, type 1 in the comments. If not, type 0 to let me know how I can make better content for you. 1. Walking without hydration. Why this quiet morning habit pushes your brain toward a stroke. For more than 4 decades of treating older adults across the United States, I've watched a pattern unfold that still unsettles me every time I see it. Seniors wake up, slip on their walking shoes, step out into the morning air, and begin their daily walk believing they are doing the best possible thing for their health. And in many ways, they are. Walking is powerful. But doing it without hydrating first is one of the most dangerous mistakes a person over 60 can make. It is subtle, easy to overlook, and yet physiologically, it places the brain in a vulnerable, almost fragile state. When you're asleep for 6, 7, even 8 hours, your body is quietly losing fluid through breathing, through the skin, and through the natural overnight processes that keep you alive. By the time you open your eyes, your blood is already thicker than it was the night before. Older adults, especially those in their late 60s, 70s, and 80s, experience this thickening more intensely because aging blood vessels are less elastic and less efficient at maintaining smooth flow. Thick blood moves sluggishly. It strains the heart, it slows circulation to the brain, and it dramatically increases the likelihood that a small clot, something as tiny as a grain of sand, can form or break loose. Now, imagine stepping outside in that state. You begin walking, your heart rate rises, your blood pressure climbs to meet the physical demand, and your brain is suddenly pushed into a circulation challenge it is not ready for. The combination of low hydration, increased blood viscosity, and sudden cardiovascular stress creates exactly the kind of environment in which strokes begin. I have seen it too many times. A patient walking around their neighborhood, feeling a little lightheaded, but ignoring it, then suddenly experiencing facial drooping, arm weakness, or a wave of confusion they cannot explain. Dehydration is not just feeling thirsty. In seniors, dehydration is a medical condition with real neurological consequences. When older adults walk without first rehydrating, the brain's arteries, already narrowed by age, must push thicker blood through tighter spaces. This is how microclots form, how they lodge into delicate vessels, and how they trigger the earliest stages of a stroke. Some patients describe feeling foggy, others say the world tilts slightly, and many brush it off as aging. But medically, these are red flags, signals that the brain is struggling to supply its own tissues with oxygen. And here is the most unsettling part. Some older adults don't feel anything at all. No dizziness, no warning. The clot forms quietly. The stroke arrives suddenly. Families are left wondering how it could have happened on just a morning walk. Hydration is not a luxury. For a senior, it is protection. A simple glass of water, room temperature, not cold, can thin the blood just enough to restore healthy flow, support stable blood pressure, and protect the brain during those first steps outside. I tell every patient the same thing. Before you walk, before you take your pills, before you check the news, drink water. It can genuinely save your life. And if skipping water before walking is risky, the next habit is even more dangerous because it affects your brain the moment you open your front door. Let's move to habit number 2. If you're still watching and finding these insights helpful, please comment number 1 below to let me know you're with me. Now let's move on to point number 2. 2. Walking in cold morning air. The hidden shock that raises your stroke. Risk after 60. For decades, practicing geriatric medicine in communities across the United States, from Minnesota winters to the chilly coastal mornings of Washington and the Northeast, I've watched older adults walk straight from a warm home into cold morning air without realizing the profound danger it creates for their aging blood vessels. To a young person, stepping into a crisp 45-degree Fahrenheit morning may feel refreshing, even invigorating. But for someone over 60, it can quietly provoke a cascade inside the cardiovascular system that places the brain in harm's way within seconds. When cold air meets the skin, especially around the face, ears, neck, and chest, the body's first reaction is to protect the core by tightening blood vessels. This sudden vasoconstriction might be harmless in youth, but in older adults, whose arteries have already lost elasticity, it becomes a serious challenge. The vessels supplying the brain narrow sharply, blood pressure jumps, and circulation must work harder to deliver oxygen upward. It is in these moments, right at the start of a walk, that the risk of stroke triggers begins to rise. What many seniors don't realize is that blood exposed to cold becomes more viscous. It literally thickens. And when thicker blood is pushed through vessels that have constricted from the cold, friction increases inside the arteries. This friction stresses the artery walls and encourages the formation of small clots, clots that may travel, lodge, or interrupt blood flow to the brain. I have had patients tell me they felt a sharp pressure behind the eye or a moment where their balance wavered after stepping outside. Others describe an instant headache that vanishes as quickly as it arrives. These brief episodes are not just discomfort, they are neurological warning shots. It is not the cold itself that causes strokes. It is what the cold does to aging circulation. The body reacts aggressively, sometimes too aggressively, and this overreaction can overwhelm a heart that is already working against time, medications, and chronic conditions like hypertension or stiffened arteries. When you begin walking in that state, with your heart rate rising, your breathing increasing, your muscles demanding more blood, the brain enters a period of vulnerability. It has to perform under stress, with narrowed vessels and thicker blood, a combination that can easily open the door to a transient ischemic attack or a full stroke. I've seen seniors collapse in driveways. I've had families tell me their loved one complained of feeling off on a winter morning walk and ignored it. Cold-induced blood pressure spikes are well documented, and for older adults, these spikes can be dramatic, sometimes enough to rupture a weakened vessel or push a small clot into the wrong artery at precisely the wrong moment. And yet, the danger doesn't feel dramatic. That's the deceptive part. You might just feel a little stiff, a little short of breath, a little chilled around the forehead and nose. But inside, the vascular system is under intense strain. This is why I urge every senior: protect your head, neck, and chest when you walk in cold weather. A light scarf, a soft hat, even a thin windproof jacket can prevent that sudden shock to your blood vessels and spare your brain from unnecessary risk. Cold mornings are beautiful, peaceful, and part of daily life in many parts of the US. But for an older adult, they require respect. A simple step outside can transform into the exact environment where blood clots form, circulation stumbles, and the earliest stages of a stroke are silently set in motion. And if the cold air can do this much damage in seconds, wait until you hear what happens when seniors start their walk at the wrong speed in the wrong way. That habit is even more common and even more dangerous. Let's move to habit number 3. 3. Walking too fast at the start. The silent surge that overloads an aging brain. For decades, I've watched older adults step out their front doors with determination, ready to get the blood moving or start strong on their morning walks. It's a very American instinct. Push hard, move fast, show that age hasn't slowed you down. But as a physician who has spent his career treating seniors, I can tell you with complete sincerity, beginning a walk too fast, especially within the first 2 minutes, is one of the most dangerous habits a person over 60 can develop. It's not just unwise, it's physiologically hazardous in ways most people never imagine. When you first wake up, your cardiovascular system is still adjusting. Blood pressure is naturally higher in the early morning hours. Cortisol levels are elevated, and circulation is slower after a night of lying still. Older arteries, stiffer, narrower, and more plaque-lined, take longer to adapt to sudden demand. Yet many seniors step outside and immediately accelerate their pace as if they were starting a race. Inside the body, this creates a rapid surge in blood pressure and heart rate, a surge that an aging cardiovascular system cannot buffer the way it once could. In younger adults, blood vessels dilate quickly, the heart compensates smoothly, and oxygen flows easily to the brain. But in older adults, the response is delayed. Instead of opening wide, the vessels tense. Instead of stabilizing blood flow, the body experiences a moment of internal struggle, high pressure pushing through tight vessels. This is precisely the environment where tiny clots begin to form, especially in arteries already compromised by age or mild plaque buildup. And once a clot forms, it doesn't take much for movement or pressure to dislodge it. When that happens, it can travel to the brain and block a vessel within minutes. That is how walking too fast at the start triggers strokes in otherwise active, health-conscious seniors who believe they are doing the right thing. I've had patients tell me the same chilling story. I just started my walk like always, and suddenly I felt lightheaded, or my vision blurred, or something felt wrong. These moments are often brushed off as just getting older. They are not. They are signals that the brain is not receiving adequate blood flow because the body was pushed too quickly before it was ready. A sudden pace increase can drop cerebral perfusion, meaning the blood reaching the brain, by just enough to cause a transient ischemic attack. Some seniors recover in minutes, others never fully recover. Starting too fast also forces the heart into a dangerous spike of demand. In older adults with even mild heart disease, this sudden load can cause brief arrhythmias, unstable blood pressure swings, or decreased cardiac output. The brain, fragile aging, and dependent on steady oxygen feels the impact almost instantly. This is why strokes in seniors so often begin with a feeling of imbalance, confusion, or a strange sensation of walking through fog. The brain is sounding the alarm, but by the time many seniors notice these signs, the damage is already building. The heartbreaking truth is this: many strokes that occur during or shortly after walking are not caused by the entire walk itself. They are caused by the first few minutes, that abrupt, unnecessary push that places aging vessels under intense pressure before they have time to adapt. A safe walk should begin like the gentle opening of a curtain, not the slamming of a door. 2 minutes of slow, steady steps allow the blood vessels to relax, allow the heart to warm up, and give the brain the stable circulation it needs to stay protected. It is not weakness to start slow. It is wisdom. It is survival. But if starting too fast is dangerous, wait until you hear what happens when someone walks while holding their breath or tensing their body on hills. That silent habit is even more common and far more threatening. Let's move to habit number 4. If you're still watching and finding these insights valuable, please comment number 1 below to let me know you're here. Now let's keep going with point number 4. 4. Walking while holding your breath on hills, the dangerous strain that older brains cannot afford. In my decades of treating older adults across the United States, there is a particular walking habit that almost no senior realizes they're doing, yet I see its consequences in hospital rooms far too often. It happens on a quiet suburban hill, a small incline in a neighborhood park, or even the gentle slope of a driveway. Seniors start climbing, the effort increases slightly, and without thinking, they hold their breath or tighten their chest and abdominal muscles as they push upward. It's a subtle reflex, something the body does automatically. But after age 60, that tiny unconscious act becomes medically dangerous in ways most people never imagine. When an older adult holds their breath during exertion, even for a few seconds, it triggers what we call the Valsalva effect, a sudden rise in internal chest pressure that compresses major veins, reduces blood returning to the heart, and causes an immediate spike in blood pressure once the breath is released. In younger bodies, the cardiovascular system rebounds quickly, but in an aging system where arteries are stiff, heart muscle may be weakened, and baroreceptors, which regulate pressure, react slowly. This momentary pressure surge can be devastating. As breath is held, blood flow to the brain drops. Oxygen supply decreases. The heart fights to pump against a closed, pressurized system. The vessels in the neck, already narrowed with age, struggle to deliver what the brain desperately needs. This is the exact environment in which microclots form: thick blood in a stressed vessel, turbulence in circulation, and restricted oxygen delivery. Those clots may originate in the legs, the neck, or even inside the carotid arteries, and once activity resumes and breath is released, that sudden burst of circulation can push a clot upward, lodging it in a smaller artery of the brain. When that blockage happens, even for seconds, it triggers strokes, sometimes small, sometimes massive, always life-changing. I have heard countless patients recount the same subtle warning signs after climbing a hill. My vision My vision went blurry for a moment. I felt a pressure in my head. My balance slipped just a little. I felt a strange heaviness. These are not harmless sensations. They are neurological alarms, brief, frightening moments where the brain is being deprived of oxygen. And the most unsettling part is that most seniors dismiss these symptoms, assuming they are just getting older, never realizing that their own breathing pattern is the real culprit. The older body reacts differently to exertion. The diaphragm is weaker, the chest wall is stiffer, and the instinct to brace during a climb becomes stronger with age. Many seniors also have chronic conditions: hypertension, diabetes, atrial fibrillation, peripheral vascular disease that make the brain even more vulnerable to abrupt changes in blood flow. Holding your breath during effort magnifies all of these risks. It increases internal pressure, destabilizes circulation, and can transform a simple neighborhood walk into a neurological emergency. When I speak with my older patients, I describe breath as the carrier of blood flow. If breath stops, pressure rises. When pressure rises, blood flow becomes chaotic. And when blood flow becomes chaotic, the brain is at risk. A simple habit: breathing steadily, gently, intentionally while walking uphill, can protect the brain more effectively than many medications. Controlled breathing keeps blood pressure stable, reduces vascular stress, and prevents the sudden pressure spikes that lead to clots breaking loose or weak vessels rupturing. I often tell my patients, you do not need to avoid hills, you just need to climb them with respect, with awareness of your breath. Every exhale protects your brain, every inhale stabilizes your heart, every rhythmic breath keeps your circulation safe. But if incorrect breathing during a climb can silently threaten your brain, wait until you hear how the wrong footwear, something most seniors never question, can quietly sabotage your balance, your circulation, and your stroke risk. Habit number 5 is one that surprises nearly everyone. 5. Walking while distracted. Phone, news, calls. The mental stress hazard that older brains cannot handle. In my decades of caring for older adults across the United States, I've watched something unsettling become increasingly common. Seniors no longer walk with a quiet mind. Instead, many walk with a phone in one hand, a news alert buzzing in the other, or a voicemail playing loudly in their ear. At first glance, it seems harmless. After all, staying connected is part of modern American life. But what most older adults don't realize is that walking while distracted can silently push the brain and cardiovascular system into a dangerous state, one that dramatically increases the likelihood of a stroke. When you are over 60, your body responds differently to stress, especially early in the day. Your brain is more sensitive. Your blood vessels are less flexible. Your heart takes longer to recover from surges in pressure. And yet, many seniors step outside and immediately dive into tension filled conversations, stressful news updates, or emotionally charged messages. This combination, movement plus anxiety, creates a perfect storm inside the aging body. Here is what happens from a medical perspective. When you read a worrying headline, listen to a heated voicemail, or try to multitask while walking, your brain activates the sympathetic nervous system, the body's built in alarm. Cortisol levels rise, heart rate accelerates, blood vessels constrict in preparation for fight or flight, even though nothing dangerous is actually happening. In a younger person, these changes stabilize quickly. But for an older adult, these reactions can push the cardiovascular system into dangerous territory. The moment your blood vessels constrict, blood begins to move through tighter channels. If your blood is even slightly thicker due to mild dehydration or morning physiology, this constriction slows circulation further. Slowed blood flow allows tiny clots to form more easily, especially in seniors with a history of hypertension, atrial fibrillation, or plaque buildup. Once formed, these clots do not stay silent for long. When combined with a rising heart rate during walking, these clots can break loose, move upward, and lodge in one of the brain's delicate arteries. When that blockage occurs, it forms blood clots that trigger strokes, often without a single moment of warning. But the danger does not stop there. Distraction also disrupts balance and spatial awareness, two functions deeply affected by aging. When your mind is absorbed by a phone call or an upsetting story, your brain cannot dedicate full attention to navigation and posture. A minor misstep becomes more likely. A small slip on an uneven sidewalk becomes dangerous. And a fall, especially in an older adult, can result in head trauma that further increases stroke risk. What many seniors fail to recognize is that mental stress while walking is physical stress. The brain does not distinguish between emotional tension and environmental threat. The physiological response is the same: elevated pulse, constricted vessels, reduced cerebral blood flow. And for an older adult, even a brief interruption in blood flow, just a few seconds, can cause dizziness, confusion, or a transient ischemic attack. It can also destabilize plaque that has been sitting quietly inside the arteries for years. I have sat beside patients in emergency rooms who told me the same story again and again. I was walking, listening to the news, and suddenly something shifted. I felt lightheaded, then everything went blurry. They assumed they were simply tired or overwhelmed, but medically their brain had been pushed past a threshold. The distraction became the trigger. Walking is supposed to nourish the mind, not burden it. It should lower stress, not amplify it. But when phones, news, and messages invade that quiet time, they transform a healthy habit into a neurological hazard. If distraction can push your brain into danger so quickly, imagine what happens when the very shoes on your feet begin working against your body. That brings us to habit number 6, and it's one nearly every senior overlooks until it's too late. 6. Walking with poor footwear. The subtle mechanical stress that can turn deadly after 60. Across my decades of treating older adults in America, I've learned that the smallest details, things people barely notice, often carry the greatest medical consequences. And nothing illustrates that more clearly than the shoes seniors wear on their daily walks. Most older adults assume footwear is simply a matter of comfort or style. But medically, the shoes you put on each morning can determine whether your walk strengthens your brain or silently pushes you toward a stroke. What many seniors don't realize is that poor footwear, shoes that are too stiff, too worn, too loose, too tight, or lacking support, changes the entire biomechanics of the body. Every step becomes harder on the joints, the spine, and especially the vascular system. When a shoe doesn't cushion the heel properly, the impact from each step travels upward through the legs, pelvis, and lower back. In a younger person, the body absorbs this stress. But after 60, when cartilage thins, nerves become more sensitive, and circulation slows, that impact becomes dangerous. The most concerning part is how poor footwear affects blood flow. When an older adult steps into a shoe that does not fit well, the muscles in the foot and lower leg tense with every step. This tension narrows the veins, slowing the return of blood back to the heart. Blood begins to pool in the lower legs, a problem already common among seniors because aging valves in the veins no longer push blood upward as efficiently. And when blood pools, especially in the calves, it forms blood clots far more easily. Once a clot forms, walking in poor footwear increases the risk that this clot will break loose. Every uneven step, every jarring impact, every twist of the ankle can dislodge it. And when that clot travels upward through the bloodstream, the consequences can be devastating. If it reaches the brain, it triggers strokes that unfold suddenly, sometimes without a single warning sign. I have had patients who felt only a slight cramp in their foot or an ache in their shin the night before, only to suffer a clot related stroke the next morning during their walk. But the vascular danger is only part of the story. Poor footwear also disrupts balance. Shoes that lack support force the brain to work harder to stabilize the body, especially on uneven sidewalks, driveways, or grassy yards, common walking environments for seniors in the United States. When the brain is overloaded trying to correct posture and balance, blood flow to certain regions can decrease temporarily. This can cause brief confusion, missteps, or sudden dizziness. A fall in an older adult is not merely a fall, it is a cascade of traumatic risks: head injury, neck injury, internal bleeding, and vascular shock. Falls alone are responsible for thousands of stroke related complications every year. I have examined elderly patients whose shoes were worn so thin on the inside that their ankles tilted inward with each step, cutting off circulation to the foot. Others wore shoes too loose, causing their toes to grip constantly, increasing muscle tension all the way up to the pelvis and lower spine, regions closely connected to the autonomic nervous system that regulates blood pressure. This tension can cause spikes or drops in pressure that threaten brain perfusion. What frightens me most is that poor footwear gives no warning. There is no pain at first, no dramatic symptom, no clear sign that something is wrong. The damage builds quietly: strained joints, tightening muscles, slowing circulation, pooling blood. And then one day, during a simple morning walk, the body reaches its breaking point. As a doctor, I tell every senior this truth: your shoes are not a fashion choice. They are a medical device, one that determines how safely your heart pumps, how your blood moves, and how well your brain is protected. A supportive, cushioned, properly fitted shoe is not optional after 60. It is essential for survival. And if the shoes on your feet can silently shape your stroke risk, wait until you hear what happens when you stop your walk the wrong way. Because habit number 7 is the one that catches even the healthiest seniors off guard. 7. Walking without cooling down. The sudden stop that shocks an aging circulatory system. Across my decades of treating older adults in America, I have witnessed a dangerous pattern that far too many seniors overlook. They walk, sometimes briskly, sometimes with determination, feeling good about their routine, proud to be staying active. And then, the moment they reach their driveway, their porch, or the entrance to their building, they stop completely, as if switching off a light. No transition, no gradual slowing, no moment to allow the body to settle. Just a hard stop. For someone in their 30s, this abrupt halt might cause nothing more than a moment of breathlessness. But for someone in their 60s, 70s, or 80s, with aging arteries, slower circulation, and a heart that doesn't adjust as quickly, this sudden stop is far more dangerous than people realize. It can disturb blood flow so severely that it places the brain at immediate risk. Here's what actually happens inside the body. When you walk, especially at a steady or brisk pace, your muscles act like pumps. Every step presses the calf muscles, pushing blood upward through the veins toward the heart. This rhythmic motion helps maintain stable circulation, but when you suddenly stop, the pumping action stops too. Blood that was moving efficiently now pools in the legs. The heart receives less return flow. Blood pressure can drop or fluctuate sharply. And the brain, which relies on precise, steady blood supply, suddenly finds itself under stress. This rapid shift can cause dizziness, dimmed vision, a sense of imbalance, or the feeling that your legs are giving out. Seniors often chalk this up to fatigue. But medically, these are signs of transient cerebral hypoperfusion, temporary reduction of blood flow to the brain, and it is far more serious than it feels. In an older adult with stiff arteries, impaired circulation, or plaque buildup, this sudden shift becomes the perfect storm for clot formation. When blood moves sluggishly due to pooling, it thickens and becomes more prone to forming small clots. And once a clot forms in the legs, it doesn't stay put. A few steps, a sudden movement, or even standing still afterward can release that clot, sending it traveling upward. When it reaches the brain, it forms blood clots that trigger strokes. Strokes that happen not during exercise, but immediately after stopping too quickly. I have treated patients who told me, "Doctor, I walked every morning. I never thought the problem would happen when I stopped walking." But this is precisely when the risk peaks. The abrupt halt forces the cardiovascular system into a confused state. Blood pressure swings, oxygen delivery drops, and circulation becomes unstable. And the older the patient, the more fragile these responses become. There is another hidden danger. Many seniors experience muscle tightening in the neck and shoulders when they stop suddenly, often because the body tries to stabilize itself after the abrupt change in pace. The neck contains key arteries feeding the brain, including the carotids. When those muscles tighten sharply, the arteries narrow further, limiting blood flow at the exact moment it is already compromised. A few seconds of reduced flow may not seem like much, but for an aging brain, those seconds can be enough to trigger neurological symptoms or open the door for a stroke to unfold. Cooling down is not optional for seniors, it is a medical necessity. A gradual slowdown of 2 to 3 minutes allows the heart rate to settle gently, prevents blood from pooling, maintains blood flow to the brain, and reduces the risk of clot formation. It gives your body the time it needs to stabilize, something younger bodies do naturally, but older bodies no longer can. A walk should end with the same intention it began, with care, with awareness, and with respect for the body you depend on every day. Stopping suddenly may feel harmless, but inside your arteries and veins, it creates chaos that aging systems cannot handle. And now that you've learned the final and perhaps most overlooked walking danger, the most important part remains understanding how all 7 habits intertwine and how a few simple changes can protect your brain for years to come. Let's bring everything together. Your brain depends on the small choices you make every morning. After caring for thousands of older adults across this country, one truth has become unmistakable to me. Strokes rarely appear without warning. They do not strike out of nowhere. They build quietly over months, sometimes years, through tiny daily habits that seem harmless on the surface, but place tremendous strain on an aging brain and circulatory system. These 7 walking habits, starting without hydration, stepping into cold air unprepared, walking too fast too soon, holding your breath on hills, allowing distractions to flood your mind, wearing poor footwear, and stopping abruptly may look ordinary. But each one can force the heart to overwork, push blood pressure into dangerous territory, or slow circulation at the exact moment your brain needs stability the most. Together, they create an environment where blood thickens, vessels tighten, oxygen drops, and small clots form silently. These micro changes, repeated often enough, are exactly what trigger strokes in older adults who never thought they were at risk. But the good news, the part I want every senior in America to hold on to, is that these dangers are preventable. None of these habits require expensive treatments, complicated exercises, or drastic lifestyle changes. They simply require awareness, a glass of water before walking, a scarf on a cold morning, a slower first minute, steady breathing, a quiet mind, supportive shoes, a gentle cool down. These are small acts, but for an aging brain, they are powerful acts of protection. Every senior deserves to walk with confidence, not fear. And by understanding these risks, you give yourself the chance to stay independent, strong, and mentally sharp for years to come. Because in the end, your brain does not ask for perfection, it only asks for care and the courage to pay attention before danger has the chance to strike. These lessons are meant to inspire you to live fully and authentically. Now, I'd love to hear from you. Take a moment to reflect and share one thing you've learned and plan to apply in your own life. Let's support each other on this journey toward embracing these truths. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a comment with 1. If not, feel free to comment with 0. Your feedback means a lot to us. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more content like this. Thank you for watching, and here's to living life on your own terms.